Hello there, hello there, hello there. My name is Eric Mahaffey. I have decided to run for Congress for the state of Washington, 10th Congressional District, and I'm trying to figure out how to cool down this political nightmare that we have going on right now. And I believe the only way to do it is to start a conversation with the average people and get people to start talking about some of the political issues that they're hearing about. I honestly and truly believe that we have very similar wants and beliefs, but I personally feel that it's our media system that is trying to pull us apart for profit. And I'm not interested in watching this country go down. I have been involved in politics in one way or another for most of my life. I've actually changed rules in my own hometown. Matter of fact, in Oregon, where I was living before this, I took care of some of the video lottery issues and got it more into the hands of honest citizens instead of some of the people that were trying to take it over for pure profit reasons. I do have a Churchill in my family. I have two people that are in England that are also heavily involved in their local politics. And I've decided that I'm tired of watching which way our country is going. And since this government is supposed to be by the people, for the people, of the people, I have decided to run for office. Once again, 10th Congressional District. Any questions? Just put some questions out every now and then. I have a couple people here that have been brave enough to sit back and watch, and I'm hoping they'll help guide this in the direction that keeps the whole thing interesting.
So what have you done, what do you do besides being run for office?
Well, my present job is I'm an electrician, mostly specializing in repair. One of the things I did, which I found fascinating, is I went out on the fishing boats out of Seattle, and I spent 2 months out at the sea in front of Oregon and Washington, and then I would go up and spend 2 months out between Alaska and Russia gathering fish, and I was the only electrician on the boat. So I was responsible for everything from PLCs, programmable logic controllers, factory equipment, conveyor belts, motors. They had a rotary telephone system. This boat was 400 feet long, 52 feet wide, 6 stories tall, 150 crew members, and my job was to keep everything electrical running. But before that, my mom used to try to protect her home kitchen appliances by bringing stuff in from the Goodwill store and having me take that apart instead of taking apart her blenders and her egg beater and her toaster and whatever. So I learned a lot about that end of the world and working with my hands. But over my many years of life, I've been watching the America that I grew up knowing and love starting to slip away a little bit. And I'm concerned that if I don't step up and do something, that it's going to be swallowed up by big corporate money and a lot of, well, how do you say it? It's just going the wrong direction. It's not going to be for the people, by the people, of the people, something I believe in.
What's your position in kind of politics? Like, what are you running for?
I'm a union electrician, and I am running in a manner that will help the working class people. Anything they do is trying to help the average person with a paycheck. So I'm a great believer. Well, one thing I learned while doing this is most unions across the country have what's called a union council. And the union council represents all of the unions in their local area or local state or their local county. We have a Pierce County union district, and we also have a Thurston County union council. And these people, what they do is they tune out all of the pundits, all the trash, all the news, and they pay attention to how these people actually vote. And they want to make sure that they're getting things that support the working class. And most of the time, they would appreciate it if their members would vote union, would vote Democrat, because Democrats tend to give laws and rules that help support the working class. Where through most of my history, I've watched, not always, but typically, federal Republicans, people up in Congress, tend to vote in manners that dismantle unions, that do more harm than good. But I listen to them talk, and they seem to be saying that it's all wonderful and it's all great and they're taking care of the working class, when their voting kind of shows that they're not. So for me, I try to find people that are better educated about things, and I love to ask them questions to see if they have answers that will help guide me in the right direction. And that's one of the places I get my guidance.
So you're saying you want to run for office?
Yes.
Right. And then you're also saying you're a Democrat.
Yes. I'm what I consider to be a conservative Democrat.
Okay, conservative Democrat.
All right,
gotcha.
which is an oxymoron if you're paying attention to the
Okay.
system nowadays. But anyways,
Yeah, for those kind of like me at least, like I don't really know what a democratic conservative really means. Like, could you explain what that means, or?
I don't think that the average person should expect to be able to get a living off of the government. I don't think social programs should be your main support. But I do believe that the government should be in place to help us when we fall. There's no way life is perfect. Things go wrong. And in my opinion, it's the government's job to have some programs that will help us. Most of us are lousy at planning for retirement. So the Social Security has set up with a retirement program so that you have a process that will hopefully give you a little bit of money later in life. And that's the kind of things the government should be doing. I know that recently they're talking about trying to collapse it, and I know that the Republicans have made conversations about collapsing it, and I know that when they're in a public forum, the Republicans tend to claim they're not doing it. But once again, if you pay attention to how they're voting, typically they are voting in a manner that will collapse programs along those lines. And they're calling them entitlement programs, and yet Social Security is not a retirement program. You pay for it all your life. That's part of what comes out in your taxes.
That brings up a question for me. One of the, I guess this is a pet peeve of mine. 30 years ago, my wife at the time was diagnosed with malignant melanoma, and we decided that it was a good idea for her to quit work and come spend some time at home. At the time, she was insured through her work, and once she left, though, she couldn't continue that insurance. She had to do COBRA, and then COBRA only lasted like maybe 3-4 years, something like that. And then after that, the premiums were like astronomical, and they're still really astronomical. Is that the type of thing that you think the government should be there for, to give affordable health care?
Yes, I believe affordable health care is very important. But one of the things that's already been happening is I've listened to a lot of the conservative systems downplaying it and trying to say how it would destroy our medical system. So when I talk about reasonably priced health care, I see a lot of people already have a shock and awe look on their face. So we already have a lot of pre-programming. And once again, my philosophy is that it's not the people that are having trouble. I honestly and truly believe that people are good, and we honestly care about our country. But and we want to get along, but we have a media system which is very interested in making sides, dividing us, turning us into permanent customers. And they're regularly finding ways to get under our skin. And unfortunately, a lot of this is starting to drive people apart. And I'm tired of seeing that. There are affordable healthcare systems in other countries that are working, and they're working quite well. But it means that the people with their hands that own these big, huge corporations are going to lose a lot of money. So it's a cheap investment for them to use their advertising budget and other methods to slam anybody they think might be taking their money away. So it's a hard bridge to cross, because I don't think America's ever been in a system, in a position where she's seen her information system purchasable. So I would like to see these expenses that you were talking about reasonable, okay? Because a lot of them aren't reasonable. And there's been this huge thing that's happening right now where they're trying to hit you with surprise bills. So after you think you're done paying for everything, suddenly you find yourself with another bill coming in. This is insane. The government's job, from my point of view, is to do its best to make sure that people don't get hurt. This country needs a little bit of protection, a little bit of, but you shouldn't expect it to do it all for you. Okay? There has to be a reasonable ground, because we're paying ridiculous prices for medicine. My wife is an asthmatic, all right? If I fall off insurance, which as a contractor sometimes you do, because if work slows down the insurance, you stop getting paid. And I've had to actually go look for inhalers. Here in the States, they're $250. I have a place out of Canada that I've dealt with where they actually are charging about $50 for an inhaler. So why is the exact same inhaler with the exact same company with the exact batch, which in this case we had exact batch dates, exact medications, in America costing $2.50 and in Canada costing $0.50? $250, $50, cash outright. Why? Okay? Well, it's not because that's what the people want. I mean, one of my philosophies where America is safe because you have to convince half the country. And there's a lot of us out here, all right? And convincing half the country is tough. But I got a friend of mine in a conversation kind of like this where I'm talking to people about how things that are set up, and they said, no, you just have to have half of the Congress in your hand, in your pocket.
Well, and that's the other side of this. In order to fix it, you got to have both sides have to agree on something.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about having a system like Australia where everybody has to vote? Everybody has to vote, which would require both parties to be more centrist.
I think there's ups and downs to that. It is, I think if more people voted, because right now what's happening, I think what's making our government a little nuts, is we have people that are playing to the extremes because the extremes are the only ones that vote. So you have people way over there, okay, and they'll vote if you say these things, and you have people way over here, and they'll vote if you say these things, and all these people here are doing is trying to figure out how to put fuel in their car, get the kids off to school, get a good dinner on the table, maybe find some entertainment, and they don't have time to really pay attention, and they kind of think their single vote doesn't count. And yet, these people, the people in the middle, if they actually started voting, I think it would calm our country down a lot. But once again, it's all up to the editing room. It's up to the people who have control over our information systems. And if these people want to keep stirring it up, there's not much you can do to calm it down. So we have to find some way to get some of the insanity to go away, try to get some truth in our information systems. A lot of those have been removed. They've taken a lot of those bills out. So one of my policies is when you're trying to fight a fire, the fireman will tell you, you don't aim at the flame. The flame, if you put your water and your fire extinguisher on the top of the flame, it won't do a thing for putting out the fire. You have to figure out where the base of the fire is, and you have to aim your changes there. So the things you're mentioning, which I sincerely appreciate, are all aiming at the flames. We have to take the time to figure out where the base of it is. A suggestion, one of the first bills I'd like to try to put in place is what I call suggested edits. Suggested edits is simply the ability for the writer of a paper or a document to accept or reject the edits. It's a pretty standard thing right now with a lot of these word processing programs. So if we use that for when someone drops a bill, when someone goes up with a law or a rule, and they say, hey, I'd like to make this law and rule. It's literally called dropping a rule. There's a slot in a box in front of the house and in front of this, and you just drop it in there. So if you have suggested edits, if that can become a rule, a law, then when somebody goes in and tries to take your bill about dogs and decides to replace the word dogs with cats, now your bill means something completely different. Now, if the person doing this isn't going to want this bill to be about cats, they started writing about dogs. So if they have the right to suggested edits, they can click that part out and get rid of it. The student loan program, one single term conservative House member basically at the last minute put 2 sentences into a student loan bill, which removed the ability for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is part of what keeps the banking system honest, the fear of bankruptcy. All right, so that person at the last minute, literally the last minute, the time before people read the bill and they got a chance to vote on it, this was put in. Most people didn't even know it was there. So if this suggested edits existed, that piece of sabotage would go away. And a lot of people would be in much better financial situations. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get people, senators, congresspeople, anybody, to come in and start talking to average people. So this is just simply a show where I'd like to invite you down here and get a chance to talk about things that are bothering them and see if we can figure out where the base of the flame is and figure out if some of the changes we can make that will start fixing this system so that we can start making and creating better laws that actually are working for the people.
So when it comes to the media and you've got these extremes, where do you think the base of the fire is?
I think it's all about making the money. If you can say something outlandish, something crazy, something that people will go to work about and they will say, "Did you hear?" Okay, you get people that are going to tune in to try to figure out what they heard. And so early on, there were laws, both sides laws. They were good and bad. There were sometimes the both sides law would give the other side more weight than it deserved, so there were some issues with it. But that was removed. A lot of these news programs are no longer news programs. They're pundits talking about things. It's more of an opinion program. But they're being suggested with a lot of force and a lot of almost anger and almost hostility. And there's a lot of people that truly believe what they're being told by these groups. So the question comes down to, how do you make these people responsible for telling the truth? Who was the one guy who was saying that Sandy Hook never happened? It was a stage, it was a setup. He was basically has this show that he puts out on a regular basis. And where he makes his money is preppers. He finds people that are thinking the world's going to end, and he sells them prepper goods, sometimes the ability to make hundreds and thousands of dollars a day. The more people that are watching his show, the more people that are paying attention to what he's saying, the more people will buy. So if he can find something that jacks his ratings through the roof, then he can sell more product. So at this point, he really doesn't care what he's saying. He's saying it with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of care, a lot of belief, a lot of vigor, constantly repeating it. It took 10 years before they got to a point where they could actually declare him guilty and try to get a reward. This guy also has enough money that he knows how to hide the money. So these people are probably never going to see anything, but their lives were destroyed so this guy could sell more prepper goods to another community.
So you think maybe having him disclose like a conflict of interest in the, that he's got an ownership in the company that's advertising on a show or something like that?
I don't think that's going to stop most people. Most people are too busy trying to put dinner on the table to care about looking a little deeper into a program. I think if you're trying to get people, nowadays in college, when you write a paper, you're supposed to put in footnotes. Where did you get your information? Where did this come from? How do I get back to the root of you telling me that it's worth that much? How do I get back to the root of the story that says this is true? Where's the evidence? Okay, so if these people are actually researching, and if they're actually looking for the truth, then they should have that. Everything's on the web nowadays. So have all informational shows, from pundits to communication to whatever, have them all be on the web with their homework. Show your work. So if these people think that the election has been stolen and there's tons of evidence, okay, put it online. Okay, someone should be able to do a quick search, be able to find that back page, your homework. If you're actually doing your homework, this is something you just kind of go, put it online, you're done. And then you start knowing if someone's making stuff up or if they're actually talking the truth. And there'll be a few people that'll look into it. So when you go to the water fountain and you say, "Hey, did you hear?" They'll say, "Yes, but I read the backstory and this is what it was actually about." Got to get to the truth. That's truly what it is. I don't want to pass truth programs that lean one way or truth programs that lean the other way. I'm trying to figure out how to produce things that honestly and fairly give the people the ability to see what's real and what's not.
So like we're talking about the media, like how you're thinking that the kind of the core of the fire, like what's at the bottom,
The base of the fire.
the base of the fire. You're saying that is basically the money is what you believe is the
In a lot of cases, not always.
okay.
There is no such thing as one law or one rule that will fix all problems.
Right.
And I think people are frankly crazy to think that they are. It's a little bit overly simplified. Everything is very unique. But yes, follow the money helps a lot.
Do you support any kind of environmentalism at all or anything?
No plan B.
All right.
All right. If we don't take care of this, I mean, this planet is literally just a ball of chemicals, and the chemicals are going to do what the chemicals do. And if we don't understand that process, then we're dooming ourselves. The frustrating thing is that the plan that's out there is 30 to 50 years to start to notice the differences, just to begin to get to the beginning edges of these things. So it's not immediate enough for people. And you can't scream global warming when the entire east coast of America was below zero for a while there. It's global warming. The air is being blown off of Alaska, warming it up, bringing it on. So there's a lot of denialism because it's also so far out that people have trouble seeing it. So it's much easier for someone to stand up and get viewers by saying, that's all lies, don't worry about it, just do what you normally do. That's what we want to hear. We don't want to be alarmed. So when somebody comes out with that kind of an answer, you know, that's what you want to listen to. That's who you'll tune into. Is it right? No. We only have one shot.
I do need to do more research, but I have also heard that there are some data or there are some graphs that have been manipulated for basically the agenda of global warming.
People being allowed to continue doing what they're doing
Right.
because this graph says it's okay.
Right, yeah, people who have an agenda to protect the earth. What are your thoughts on that?
I know that in America, you will always have people that disagree about everything and friggin' anything. All right, it's just the way it works. So if you want to convince people that global warming isn't happening, you can always find a scientist or somebody who's going to say to you that it's unreal, it's not real, here's my proof, here's my evidence, here's why I believe this way. But you're also going to find people that say the opposite. And so the best thing you can do, and I tell people the easiest way to get through most of this is to learn the difference between preaching and teaching. So I try to look for a majority of scientists, a majority of people, the bigger group that's telling me what's going on. And those are the people I tend to trust. But I also know enough about science and enough about chemicals and enough about what's going on here to know that just a little bit of the refrigerant that comes out of a lot of the older refrigerators and air conditioning units destroys 10 to 20 times its weight in the ozone, and it takes many years to do it. So we only got one planet. Would you rather clean the planet up and be wrong about the global disaster that's coming, and you have a cleaner planet, or would you rather just allow the planet to be dirty and then discover that you're right? I mean, I honestly think cleaning the planet is win-win for everybody. I don't see any reason to think leaving all these disasters and chemicals around is a good thing. It costs a lot of money to clean it up. The people with lots of money think they're going to be the ones that have to pay for it. It's a cheaper investment to find the guy denying global warming and make sure he's on every channel you can get your hands on than it is to possibly be faced with the fines of what it takes to clean this up.
You know, what would be your ideal plan for, like, you know, cleaning up Earth, or like, you know, would you, yeah, what are your plans on that?
Right now, we've got to get the media in a position where it's telling us the truth, because you can have absolutely the best plans in the world, and if nobody's listening and if nobody is caring, or if there's a huge voice telling you that person is wrong, all right, you can't get it out there. It really comes down to how do we deal with the information? How do we get to the point that we can actually create good, clean information? Because I think if we were all getting the truth, that this would be academic. The global warming issue would go away. The things the banking system is doing would go away. The games that people are playing to chase money would start to go away. It's got to come down to getting good, clean information into the hands of the people and making the folks that are working against that more responsible for their actions. Any other thoughts? Cool. Well, it looks like we just have a little bit of time left. I do thank you for listening. This is an open show. I would like to have people come down and maybe express opinions that are different than mine. Please find me on the internet, look me up, and get involved. I'd love to hear from you.